Okay, here's a brain teaser for you. As many of you know, especially if you've been watching this channel, is that Miku Miku ni Shitera Ageru and Mel are two of the most popular songs to ever be put on Nico Nico. But on top of that, both tracks came out in 2007 as well. For 69 weeks, Miku Miku ni Shitera Ageru stayed in the top 30 undisturbed. But then in 2009, on the week of January the 26th, the song vanished into thin air. Mel had been following a similar pattern. The song spent a total of 61 weeks up there, and then the week after that, it was gone too. So what killed them? I think the most common thing to think is that the community just got bored of them. But that's most likely not the case. Miku Miku ni Shitera Ageru was sitting comfortably at 15 the week before it disappeared, so that wouldn't make much sense. Okay, so if it wasn't boredom, then maybe a new producer came and just knocked them off. But one person knocking off two of the most popular songs ever made by themselves? I don't care how talented of a producer they are. They would have to put out multiple chart-topping songs at the same time just for that to happen. But what if it was multiple people working together, but they had no idea they were until it already happened? Nah, that's ridiculous. I mean, the only way that could happen is maybe Krypton Future Media put out a new vocal bank. Yes, Megadine Luka single-handedly took down two of the most popular Vocaloid songs to ever be made, at the same time. If you look at Vocaloid today, I can understand why you might find this hard to believe. It's all about Miku, right? I mean, Gumi might be a close second, but Luka is nowhere near the top of that popularity list. But what if I told you there was a time where Luka was more popular than Miku? Luka Fever, as I call it, is a period of time spanning from her release on January the 30th to March the 2nd, where she dominated the boards in Nico Nico. Luka certainly wasn't the first Vocaloid to come out. In fact, out of all the main vocal banks released by Krypton Future Media, she was the last. But she did do something that the rest were not able to do, and that was to take the spotlight away from Hatsune Miku. You see, when Ren and Len were released before that, there was certainly a good number of tracks that were weaved into the rankings, but there was no shift in power. Miku was still dominating the rankings, and while Kaito and Meiko were both released before Miku, we all know that the spike in popularity and interest in Vocaloid as a platform didn't start until 2007, and by that point it took months before any popular tracks appeared even using the two. But when the Luka Vocal Bank was released on January the 30th, 2009, that wasn't the case. It was a wildfire from the get-go. The week of release, at least 20 of the top 30 songs were tracks made using Luka. And on top of that, all the gatekeepers at the time were given the boot except for two. So the result was that the board was essentially flipped upside down. That was how large of a cultural movement it was, and to top it off, RAP Equals released by Minato became the highest scoring song in the weekly Vocaloid ranking history at the time, hitting over 200,000 views in 5 days, and later became the second song using Luka to enter the Vocaloid Hall of Legends. But trust me, that was only the beginning. By the following week, everyone was involved. Both new producers and familiar names you'll recognize, like Sam Free, Lamaze P, Sasakure UK, and Ulster Project. It seemed like everyone wanted a piece of the growing demand for Luka, but one producer would seemingly topple them all. I'm sure everyone watching this has heard Double Lariat at some point before. It's easily one of the most recognizable songs that uses Luka. What makes this song so incredible is the fact that Agawa Nikki P had seemingly come out of nowhere and took the scene by storm during one of the most chaotic periods in Vocaloid history. And the only other song that Agawa Nikki P had put out that really amassed any popularity before this was Yokora Sex. And I don't want to insult Agawa Nikki P because Yokora Sex is legitimately a great song, I promise. But it seems like it's relying a bit on shock to create popularity. And when I say seems, I mean it absolutely relies on shock to create popularity. But Double Lariat was completely different. Was it still bizarre? Absolutely. I mean, the whole song is literally about Luka spinning in a circle. But that was it. That was all this song had going for it. This song broke its way to the top by simply being the best produced and well-made song. The bass on the song absolutely slaps, even during the verses. The chorus is a perfect harmony of guitar, bass, and drum, and not a single instrument overpowers the other. They complement each other so well. The perfect layering of instruments during the outro, and don't even get me started on the guitar solo during the bridge. Goodness. The song was so ahead of its time. But the result was not only just one of the most famous Luka songs to ever be made, but one of the most popular Vocaloid songs to ever be created. When Sippotan put together their list of the most popular songs for Miku's 10th anniversary, this song sat at number 11. Agawa Nikki P just knew how to play his cards right. As you can imagine, as the weeks passed, the Luka-related content started to thin out. Luka-related songs started to rank lower, and the board started to return to normal as well. Even after the second week of Luka Fever, the gatekeepers were starting to re-enter the top 30 again. Though I would say about 1/3 of the top 30 were still dominated by Luka tracks at that time. One notable track that I want to point out that came a bit late in the celebration though is Luka Luka Night Fever. It's by the late Sam Free, and it's definitely my favorite track that he ever made. I love the upbeat synths, and of course who can forget that iconic chorus. It's an overall phenomenal dance song, and in my opinion it's also a pretty well known song too. So I was shocked to see that it didn't even break the top 5 when it was released, and to be gone so quickly from the rankings. But slow burners are not that uncommon in music, I suppose, right? And that brought up an interesting observation to my mind, and that's the fact that being the first to put out a song during all of this doesn't secure you fame. Despite tracks like RIP equals Release and Toeto being the most popular songs during this time, they're definitely not the first tracks that I think of when I think of Luka. And I'll be honest, I really didn't know many of these tracks before doing research for this video. RIP equals Release is a popular track too. I mean, it has over 2 million views, but I hardly ever hear it come up these days. While tracks that came out later during the same year come up all the time, like Just Be Friends. It's just kind of interesting to see how these songs get lost to time while others continue to still be actively talked about today. One character that we would see a rise of during this time too was Taco Luka. Taco is Japanese for octopus, by the way. I'm not talking about an actual taco. Now, why is Luka associated with an octopus with a weird obsession for tuna? Well, it's a little complicated. If you've been around here long enough, you know that each Vocaloid has a character item. Miku is most famously associated with leeks, Kaito ice cream, and so forth. They're typically fan-made items that eventually get acknowledged by Krypton Future Media. As we now know, Luka's character item is the tuna, but back in the day when a new Vocaloid was announced, something called an item war could happen. This was essentially a situation where the community would fight over what character item would suit that character the best. And once the official illustration came out for Luka on January the 6th, the war had officially begun. Countless opinions were brought together over different sites such as Nico Nico and Pixiv. But my personal favorites were a whip, a flamingo, and of course my absolute favorite, the Gluttony Sword from Final Fantasy XI. In a perfect world, the Gluttony Sword would have won, by the way. There were various groups that formed to try to spread their influence, and most people leaned towards the Tuna Camp. And yes, by some miracle, the Gluttony Sword group had created a following as well. This is mostly due to the amazing PVs the group created. Unfortunately though, I couldn't find any of them. I know, I'm just as disappointed as you guys are. Other groups try to spread their influence as well by creating videos too, of course. Taco Luka was a direct result of the fight for Luka's character item, when the creator Sagatsu Yoka drew the character as a joke about the growing number of items they wanted the character to handle. The inspiration was that the hair reminded him of the octopus. Yeah, I can see that. Taco Luka was eventually what brought the fighting to an end. Once Taco Luka was being used essentially everywhere during Luka Fever, it essentially cemented its place in the community as well, and Luka's character. But it's unclear if this was a result of people feeling ashamed or just realizing how silly they were for fighting about this to begin with. But why should you care? Why should a small insignificant amount of time in 2009 be something you remember? Well, it's because Luka Fever was a very necessary need for the community back then. At that point, the gatekeepers seemed like unstoppable giants. While they're great and revolutionary songs, it's hard not to see them as stagnation for future talent. When you have almost 1/3 of the top 30 positions taken up by the same songs every single week, it makes it more difficult for new producers to get out there to a larger audience. Taking songs like Miku Miku Nishite Dageru and Meld out of the spotlight, let other producers take those spots again. It brought back the excitement that the scene needed to thrive and led to another era of experimenting again in the community. Almost like new life growing from the ashes, Luka was a frightening but needed uncontrollable wildfire. Thanks for watching. Hey guys, this is Ubnub. I'm gonna try to keep this real quick, but a couple of things real fast. So first of all, sorry for this video taking so long to come out. I really did not expect it to take this long, but I recently just graduated from college, and then right after that I went to Hawaii for like a week and a half, so I lost like a week of work that I should have been doing on this video, so I apologize that it took so long to come out. On top of that, while we're on that similar topic, now that I'm out of college, I'm going to be starting out my first job soon, and I have no idea how that's going to impact the future of this channel. I'm going to, of course, keep working on this like I always do with my free time, but if my next video takes longer or around the same amount of time that this one did, please just try to be patient with me. I'm going to be doing my best, but it's also like my first job ever, so just keep that in mind. Thanks, guys. Have a good one. Bye.